You're listening to Is It Prophecy on Israel National News. And the show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. It's a very special show today because Ari Lewis is not home and he left me home alone to do a radio show. So I thought, where better to do it than at Radio Bar in the middle of Jerusalem. Hi, I'm here with the proprietor and the owner of Radio Bar. How are you?
My name is Shai and I'm the owner of the Radio Bar at Queen Helene 5, Millennium Malka 5 in Jerusalem.
Did you have a New Year's party here?
Of course we did.
And how did that go?
It was themed Sylvester Met, which basically is celebrating the death of Sylvester. We had obituaries and we had like you know the signs you have when a person dies in the neighborhood, like the black and white thing. We had them all over the street.
In celebration of Sylvester's death.
Yeah.
It's funny because last week we did a show about Sylvester, about how ironic it is that here in Israel people call it Sylvester based on either not knowing or knowing who he was. Did you know who Sylvester was?
Yes.
No, but it's just funny that people like in Israel call it Sylvester.
It's true because it comes from Eastern European and Russian cultures that emulated into Israeli culture. That's how it watered down into
yeah, like
society.
Last week I asked a rabbi, I said, so it's good that we would call it Sylvester because if he was like an anti-Semite, so then we're celebrating his death. And then he explained to me that in the same way that in Jewish culture, if somebody is dead, then we have a yortzeit, we're honoring them. So it's steeped in that. So it's really interesting. We did a whole show where we explored New Year's, what that means, and what it means for us here in Israel. And so it was interesting to have different perspectives on whether we should or should not celebrate it. So this week we're looking at New Year's resolutions, if that's something that people do. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Too many.
Can you think of one that you really hope to get accomplished this year?
Oh, no, I have too many. I literally have too many resolutions. I mean, New Year's resolutions to share. What about you?
Well, that I wanted to take full force with trying to develop my voice as an on-air radio personality, and you, Shai, help me do that right now as I'm sitting here talking to you in a bar about New Year's and New Year's resolutions. So it's nice that you open your doors to all different types of people and provide an opportunity for people to express themselves. So thank you so much.
Oh, first of all, welcome.
And it's funny because, one of the things that this show was based on when Ari made it was looking at things within the Torah and seeing if it had practical application in today's world. So one of the things that this week's Torah portion of Shemos gets into is having sympathy for your fellow Jews' pain, or really like going out into the field and opening your eyes to see where people are at and where people are holding and how you can help. So I have a number of recorded guests this week. Rebbetzin Tziporah Heller, Rebbetzin Friedman, Rabbi Eli Deutsch, all of whom talk from a Torah perspective about what's culturally written, thousands of years ago. So this is going to be like a new experiment, I guess, for both of us if you hang out here to see if we tackle some big issues and how, from a religious or non-religious perspective, Jews can come together to have an understanding of our culture and what's going on.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And
again, you are listening to Is It Prophecy on Israel News Radio, and the show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. If you want to send an email, you can do so at themessiahhour@gmail.com. And thanks for joining us. Anyway, you look at it, January Tevis. Rebbetzin Heller is going to give us a little bit of background on Tevis in terms of the Jewish perspective on what historically that meant.
Okay. So my theory is a person should live with the times. This isn't an original idea. Some of the greatest rabbis have said that. So you may be thinking I'm talking about New Year's. I'm talking about something completely different. The Torah reading of the time. Every Torah reading has a spiritual effect on the week in which it's read. We're now entering a whole period of time in which the Torah portions are going to be about redemption. We're talking about Shemos. Here are the Jews. Here's their names. Here's what they suffered. Here's how they became a people. Here's how they were redeemed. These are the weeks of redemption. Everybody has things that are holding them back from being who they want to be. So your real self, who's it hiding behind? Are there fears? Are there insecurities? Are there habits you wish that you could drop? You could redeem yourself in these weeks. So redeeming yourself doesn't mean tying a string around your finger and saying, from now on I'll be good. It means investigating what the Torah actually tells you about who you could be and what's holding you back. So this is a great time to say, I want to redeem myself. I want to know my name, my true identity. I don't want to call myself somebody else's name anymore. Okay, another thing is I want to wear the clothes to tell me who I am and express me. I don't want to have an apologetic attitude towards my being a Jew. And not only that, not only do I want my name and my clothes, I want my language to reflect who I really am. No more gossip, no more negativity, no more lies, no more being a merchant of gossip. Let your communication reflect your higher self, your grateful self, your happy self, your giving self. And this is the time when it could happen. So have a great show of him.
Okay. Thank you so much. And Shai, you have a Hebrew name. It's funny. In English, Shai means like if you're bashful or you're
You have
quiet.
a Hebrew name as well.
I know. So my name's Shira.
Poetry.
Poetry, yeah, it's one version of the name. It's nice. My mother's a poet, actually. So before I was born, they say like when you're born, your mother has like an insight as to the personality that you're going to be. So the fact that my name is poetry or song, or when you look at the origins of where the name Shira first appeared in the Torah, it's at the splitting of the sea. The Jewish people were blown away that all their pain and suffering when they were in Egypt actually had a meaning, that God was going to come and redeem them and to give them the Torah, and they were like speechless except through song. So that's where the origin of the name Shira comes from. So one of the things that our rabbis say is that if you want to know an indication of who you could be, you look at the name, what it means, and where it comes from. So Shai, what does that mean in Hebrew?
Shai is a nicer word for a gift.
A gift. So are you a giving person?
Well, I gave you the chance to record here, so you be the judge of that.
Yeah, I think it is nice. Like, you don't know me, and you let me come, and now you're letting me record, and you could be downstairs serving customers and getting tips, but you're here with me talking Torah. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Another thing, we'll hear a bit more from Rebbetzin Heller as she talks about the history of Tavis and what has happened in the past. And again, you're listening to Is It Prophecy on Israel National News. The show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. If you want, you can send an email to us at messiahhour@gmail.com. And here's a bit more from Rebbetzin Heller on the history of Tavis in Jewish world. So can you tell us a little bit about the highlights, or the lowlights, rather, of this month of Tavis?
The most central event of Tavis is the fast of the 10th of Tavis, which was last week. The fast commemorates the beginning stages of the destruction of Yerushalayim and the destruction of the temple. Now, not coincidentally, this also commemorates the day the Torah was translated to Greek. It was ordered to be translated by Ptolemy, who was the king of Egypt, and his intent wasn't to make Greek-speaking Jews have access to Torah. This was an art scroll of the ancient world. It was to make the Torah another Greek property, another philosophy that they could analyze and understand and detach from. So they wanted Torah without any sense of obligation or spirit. We still suffer from that. There are many people who see the Torah as a collection of suggestions or tales or moral teachings that may or may not have any spiritual or practical relevance. This is what leads us to destruction. This is what leads us to fragmentation. And this is indeed why we fasted, and this is what we commemorate. But we have to move up. We have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We have to say no more to this. We could be ourselves.
Rebbetzin Heller, a few weeks ago, you took a busload of women with you to Kever Rachel to daven for the Shloshim of the Har Nof Kodashim, and to pay respect for those that had lost their lives to terror, and to pray for those who continue to struggle with the injuries that they incurred after being attacked in Har Nof. Could you give us an update as to what's happening with your son-in-law and the others?
Yes, thank you for asking. So the one who you have to consider the most and open your hearts to the most is Chaim Yechiel ben Malka Rotman. He's still basically comatose, but, and this is where your prayers come in, he's begun to be a bit more responsive. He responds to pain. He was able to participate when his wife asked him to move his foot in physical therapy. He's there. He can come back. Your prayers could help. So again, Chaim Yechiel ben Malka. The second person is Eitan ben Sarah Mualmi. He's the person who you might recall, his hand cut off by the Arab's axeman. The doctors reattached it, which is a modern-day medical miracle, in a 7-hour surgery. He's still recovering both from that and from other injuries, so have him in mind. My son-in-law, Shmuel Yerucham ben Bela Goldstein, is at home. He's been released from the hospital. He's doing better, still has a long recovery ahead of him, still has another neurosurgery, but hopefully everything will be good. Thank you for asking.
Rebbetzin Heller, if somebody is interested in learning more Torah from you, how can they best get in touch with you or hear some of your classes?
So they can go online to my website, tziporahheller.com, and become a member of an online kehillah where we learn weekly.
Thank you so much. And that was Rebbetzin Heller telling us the historical background in terms of what happened this month and what happened last month to her son-in-law and how we can still continue to keep him in our prayers. I also had a chance to talk to Rebbetzin Friedman while walking through the Old City about how we can continue to be resilient even during this time of darkness. She talks about that Tavis is a winter month, which tends to be dark, and yet if we stay focused, we can be optimistic even when it's cold. Rebbetzin Friedman, during this time of year, many people look at themselves and make resolutions or promises to change certain aspects of their behavior. How does that relate to this time of year from a Jewish perspective?
Well, this is in our time of year, this is the weeks of Shovavim, which is the beginning of Sefer Shmos, which is the time when we're preparing for Yetzias Mitzrayim and Kabbalas HaTorah. And whenever we start something new, it's the time when you're at a place where you can look back at where you were, you can look at where you are, and you can look at the vision of where you want to be. And so, particularly in these days, the days of Shovavim, which are the days of preparation for something great and new, it's the time to look at where we were and what were my places, where are my places that I fell and my vulnerabilities and the places I don't want to be anymore. Where am I now in my process of growth, and where do I want to go with my growth, my vision, and ultimately my dreams? And it's really a time of actively going out and trying to grow to your dreams. And we have the weeks of the parshas of the month and the days of Tevis that help us, that we have a lot of siyata d'shmaya, we have a lot of help to be able to get to places otherwise you could not have gotten to.
What are some of the properties of Tevis that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, Teves is a winter month, which means it's a month that tends to be dark, but it's a month that is associated with the tribe of Dan. And the tribe of Dan, it was a very strong tribe. They were a tribe of warriors. We know that Shimshon HaGibor came from Dan. And it's the ability of tackling things, even in the darkness, that seem overwhelming and being successful.
Now, I know that there's a story about Shimshon when he had lost his strength and somehow he found strength for one more battle. Could you talk a little bit about that and how that relates to maybe us as individuals?
You know, the famous story of Shimshon and Delilah and how he was seduced into telling her his strengths, which was that he was a Nazir. And Yisrael was at war with the Philistines, with the Plishtim. Shimshon was a tremendous warrior and a strength, and he was facilitating the conquering of the Plishtim. You know, the bringing down of Shimshon was not just bringing down of Shimshon, it was bringing down the hopes of Klal Yisrael and their morale. And he was, besides being a great warrior, he was a tremendous tzaddik. When they they cut his hair and they fed him wine and then they gored his eyes out. It was a very big tragedy, and yet he was able to rise and go beyond his personal tragedy and say to Hashem, Zachreni, v'chazkeni nohapam, remember me and strengthen me one more time. And he did his final act of bringing down his enemies. And this is really a personal story for each and every one of us, that at any time when we fall and when we're in a dark place, we can cry out to Hashem and say, Zachreni, remember me and strengthen me again. Let me get up again. Let me do more, one more day. And Hashem always answers us. And it's a tremendous area of comfort and strength. And it's not a tragic story, it's a comforting story.
Thank you so much, Rebbetzin. Well, joining us now on the program is Estelle from Glasgow. Estelle, how are you?
I'm very well.
So we're talking about this time of year in which people sort of take on things that they want to maybe change about themselves for the better. Do you have any New Year's resolutions or things that you're looking forward towards changing?
Yes, this year I've decided better than resolutions are wishes. So for me, I would wish to be closer to the things that surround me. So rather than feel far away from the events which, follow you, I'd rather be connected to, what you eat, what you listen to, who you love, If you love something, delve into it, understand what are the mechanisms of what makes it work, and, I would wish to, I'd wish for truth, and I'd wish for really coming together and understanding, a lot of our lives is, it's almost like being lost is the way to live, but let us try and find ourselves.
Now, you talk about getting closer to the things you love. Is there an active measure or some way that you would know if you were getting closer to it, or something that you would do specifically to make this change?
Well, I'm sort of into art-based life, so these are actions in which you relearn how to live, and in a way I sort of learned how to relearn how to be a human being by making art or making food or, all these things. So I'm relearning how to be a human being, and I hope everyone else too, and continue to question, and it's okay to have doubts, I think it's very important.
Well, I wish you the very best. And you are listening to Is It Prophecy on Israel National News, and the show is syndicated as The Messiah Hour on YouTube. If you want to send an email, you could do that at The Messiah Hour. Kotel with some amazing young women from Australia who came all the way here during this time period to gain inspiration, to gain strength as they return to Australia and go back to their schools, which are not particularly Jewish schools. So I have a couple of young ladies here. What are your names and how old are you?
I'm Hannah, I'm 16.
I'm Ava and I'm 16.
Hello, Hannah and Ava.
Hello.
Hi. So, is this your first time at the Kotel, and what brought you during this time period around when a lot of people consider it New Year's?
Well, it's my first time, and we just happened to be here over New Year's, and we're leaving today, so...
What new impression do you have of Jerusalem or Jewish people having finally come and visited yourself?
That it's bigger and it's more amazing than anybody that could ever tell you.
And did you make any New Year's resolutions for yourself?
I made just to do well in school and to achieve what I want to do.
And how do you think you can just take steps to make that happen for yourself?
I don't know. As soon as I get back to Australia, probably I should start studying for this year. But yeah.
And how about yourself? Is this also your first time visiting the Western Wall?
Yeah, it's first time. It's been amazing that no words can explain how amazing it is. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And you're going back to your school. What's your public school like that you normally go to? Are there Jewish people, or how do you identify in school?
When people ask, I say I'm Jewish, but I'm like the only Jewish person at my school, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah.
So what sort of new impressions have you gained having visited Jerusalem, and how will you hold on to that when you're back in Australia?
That I'm going to be proud to be Jewish after visiting the Western Wall, yeah.
There's a lot, but probably just being in Jerusalem at the Kotel, our first Shabbat, and also being here, it's been an amazing experience, and hopefully I'll remember that forever.
You are listening to Is It Prophecy on Israel National News, and the show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. If you want to send an email, you can do so at messiahhour@gmail.com. Joining us in the second half of the program is Rabbi Eli Deutsch from the Old City. He talks about some practical changes that we can make if we want to make significant changes in our lives. Eli Deutsch works with a lot of birthright groups that come into town, and he helps them sort of maintain the momentum after they go back to Chutz La'aretz, back to America. So we're going to hear from him in terms of what good advice he may have for anyone who wants to make significant and real changes once they've been inspired.